Hey, it's Ethan here at eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Curt Premium Hitch Bike Rack, how it fits on our 2022 Chrysler Pacifica. It's going to be a 4-bike hanging style bike rack, which means it's going to hold the bike primarily from the top tube here and let the rest of the bike hang down. It's going to be able to support 180 pounds total, 4 bikes. It's got this taper at the end, which should help you accommodate some kids' bikes, but if you do have a carbon frame bike, we wouldn't recommend using something like this just because it is primarily held by the frame, could potentially take damage while you're driving. Alternative frame bikes, you might have to pick up a bike adapter bar. The taper at the end should help you not need that for kids' bikes as much, but still a chance that you might have to pick one up. It's kind of how hanging style racks are. It does have the ability to tilt away, but not with the bikes loaded up. So we'll talk about the touch points and then we'll get the bike removed. So we do have 3 of those here, and this is going to be the anti-sway here, which is going to limit that back and forth, side to side movement. It's going to be hard to take that completely out of play, kind of how hanging style bike racks work. And then we have 2 more straps here holding onto the top. One thing I want to point out real quick is that with this front tire here, it is free swinging, and if it does go all the way over here, it will make contact with the back of the vehicle. So definitely recommend picking up some kind of stabilizing strap to hold the tire here to the center of the frame of our bike. For now though, I'm going to work on getting the bike removed. I'll just start removing these straps here. Doesn't necessarily matter which order. I'll just go from right to left. Just pulling them over these notches here. And then we'll get that anti-sway out of the way. And anytime you have a hanging style bike rack, this bike and the bar point is going to be the hardest one to get off, but you shouldn't be loading up bikes that are too heavy, and it shouldn't be too terribly difficult to get it down the length of those arms. Again, just sort of one of those things that is what it is with hanging style racks. So I'll set this off to the side, and we'll take a closer look at those cradles that were holding the bike, because they do have a couple of different configurations and a couple of things that I'd like to point out. So we'll put these straps back away. And just note that this does have the ability to rotate to give you 3 different styles of cradle, depending on your frame and frame shape. However you want to organize that, you can sort of switch that up. And each of those do have a built-in groove just to protect your brake line on your bike a little bit. So I'll replace the strap on this back one as well. And from there, I'm going to grab a measurement just so we can see how much distance we're adding onto the back of the vehicle. So again, sort of with any type of 4-bike rack, it's going to be hard to avoid adding on some space to the back of your car. But from the bumper to the furthest point here, it's going to be about 39 inches, which isn't too terribly bad. You're kind of compact on here, which again might make it a little bit odd to get 4 bikes on there without them making contact with one another. But from here, we can also fold these arms down. To do that, we're just going to remove this clip here on the side facing you, pull the pin out, find where those holes realign on the rack, replace the pin and then the clip, and now I'll get that new measurement to see how much space you save. From here, from the bumper to the furthest point out, it's only going to be about 10.5 inches, so we cut down our distance really sharply there, and it's in a much more compact position. It doesn't sit too terribly close to the back of the vehicle, and it's not going to move a lot closer to it from here, so I'm not going to be too worried about that. One thing about this rack is that it is pretty much all in the middle, and that's pretty much where the most important things are on the back of the car, including your license plate and your backup camera. As for the license plate, there's definitely windows where you can see it from either side. Kind of the same thing with the backup camera, but unfortunately it is direct center right into the post of the rack, so that's going to be really heavily obstructed. There's definitely going to be ways for you to see vehicles or people behind you, but you're definitely going to know that the rack is back there. With the arms out and the bikes loaded up, they're definitely going to be showing out of your rear window, but for now it comes just barely tall enough that it's not really going to be a factor, and because it's all in the middle, it's not going to have any impact on your taillights. One thing though is that we do have the ability to tilt it away, which we talked about early on, and I'll show you how that works now with the bikes off. So first thing we need to do is unthread this hand knob here at the back. Second thing pull this clip, and then this pin. It's still not going to go anywhere until we release this final lever here at the top. It tilts really aggressively, so we do have tons of room to open up our hatch. And because it's in the middle, there's plenty of room also on either side. If I want to, now I could change my shoes before or after the ride, or now would be the time to get anything out of the back that I'm going to need for the ride or afterwards, depending on what I'm doing. So we'll let that close up, tilt the rack back into place, and that knob will just catch once we lift it up and keep everything in place. And now I'm going to tighten this back down, and then I will replace this pin, or I might actually have to replace that pin first. So I think that knob actually holds on to the pin, so make sure that that's loose enough for this to go through. Replace the pin and the clip, and now we'll thread that down to secure everything in place. And while we're down here, actually, we can take a closer look at the shank. So for the rack, we do have a 2-inch shank. It fits into our 2-inch hitch receiver. It's held in place by a 3/4 inch anti-rattle bolt, which does a good job of taking all the shake out of the rack. There are also hitch locks and cable locks available for the rack, so if you want to pick those up, you can do that and get a little bit of extra security. And there is an anchor point back here for that cable lock too, if you want to use that to secure things down. So overall, as far as an entry-level way to get 4 bikes where you need them to go, the CURT Premium is definitely a solid option. I do like that it has that taper at the end to accommodate kids' bikes, because oftentimes if you do have a 4-bike rack, a couple of those are going to be for those kids' bikes, and you don't need to pick up the bike adapter bar to make it work. And it has a slightly larger weight capacity than a lot of other 4-bike racks. That being said, if you would prefer a little bit more security of your bikes being held in a little bit of a more secure fashion, and you don't necessarily love hanging style racks because of how much height they add to your overall system, you can check out something like the Hollywood Racks Destination 4-bike rack. It's another solid entry-level way to get 4 bikes where you need them to go, but it's going to be a platform style rack holding the bikes up from the bottom by the tires, and it's going to take up a little bit more space, but it's going to be a little bit more secure, so it's really going to come down to you and whatever you want. If you do like the CURT Premium for all the reasons we listed in this video, I do think it is a really nice choice still. This again was just a quick look at how it fits and how it works on our 2022 Chrysler Pacifica.